Hello, this is the Santiago y Miguelon Podcast recording. In our show, we break down complex concepts into simple content.
We do this by applying the Socratic method, where one of us is the teacher and the other is the student. Our chats range from anything, fintech, Web3, to security.
And hi, I'm Michael, a serial entrepreneur experienced in fintech. I talk about startups and I'm always looking for ways to improve life.
And I am Santiago. I love finding solutions to complex problems. I focus on the intersection of people and technology. I navigate the world with both an innovator's mind and a security hat. Let's kick it off, Michael.
Hey, Santiago, welcome back to our show. How are you?
Hey, Miguelon, I'm fine. I'm really excited of the topic of today.
That's great. So what do you have in mind for today?
Well, in this second episode, we are getting a bit more philosophical. We are getting in this interesting but more challenging topic of identity. And we came with the realization that independently of what you believe, if your body is what makes you you, or something more transcendental like your consciousness, we need to define identity. So after all, we live in this society that expects that individuals will continue to be who they are day after day.
Yeah. We've tried to cut this down into three particular sections. First, we want to go over why identity, what is it even? Then we'll ask some fundamental questions around how to design for identity. And then lastly, we'll talk about what technology can offer, not just Web 2, maybe Web 2.5 and even Web 3. Right. So in order to facilitate this discussion about identity a bit more, we've done some preparation in advance by really thinking this through. And we came up with this scheme here that we have right in front of us. So for those people who are listening to us, we'll definitely be able to talk you through it. If you're viewing our podcast, then you can follow along onto the screen share that we're currently showing. So this is kind of what the scheme looks like. We'll just discuss it layer by layer. Let's kick it off now with so identity itself. Maybe you want to dive into this, Santiago.
Yes, for sure. We define identity as our need for persistent uniqueness. So that is the first two concepts. So you have the individual, the uniqueness, and the temporal component. We like to think about ourselves like unique beings, right? So you are unique within this group, within this society. There is only one Miguelon, there is only one Santiago, even though you change with time, right? And there is where the temporal component goes into place. Miguelon of 10 years ago was not the same Miguelon as today.
That's very interesting, right? So that temporal component is so important because you don't want me or you to all of a sudden be a different identity tomorrow, next week, next year, right? So we need that to be consistent. That's why that temporal component isn't there. But then maybe a question still around the uniqueness. Why is that uniqueness then so important as a part of identity?
Well, at the end, you want to recognize yourself as a non-fungible being. You want to be identified as yourself, not to be lost in the mass.
We as humans also care about something being unique because we assign value to that, right? By it being unique. So if there's only one Mona Lisa hanging in the Louvre, then that is way more valuable to us than if every single art museum in any city had one Mona Lisa hanging, right? So it is us as human beings who apparently are wired in such a way that we care so much about things being unique, including our identity. Great. So now we spoke a little bit about the definition of identity, right? And I think then in our research, we also found out that there is also a distinction between it being corporal versus spiritual. You want to elaborate a bit more on this?
Yeah, sure. I think the very first naive intuition on how to define ourselves is based on our physical qualities. So when you see a person, you are able to say, okay, this is Miguelon because how he looks. You can think about passports that mention your height, eye color, your sex. Those are all corporal features that are helping to identify yourself. But then very quickly we enter into a difficult space, right? Because what happens when Michael cut his hair and then he doesn't look like the one in the picture? Is Michael still Michael? And I think that you shared with me a very nice story about Theseus. Maybe you want to share it with our audience.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of a thought experiment. So this boat of Theseus is a boat that is built out of wooden planks. And then over time, the boat gets maintenance, which means that some of the parts will be removed because they're rotten and then will be replaced with the same kind of plank, but then a new one from a different tree. And then over the years, over time, this maintenance crew manages to rebuild the boat completely from its original planks into completely new and different planks. But it looks exactly the same. And then the question here is like, is that boat still the same boat? Or is it a different boat? So did that boat keep its identity or?
So what do you think, Michael? It is the same boat?
Yeah, it's a tough question, right? I mean, I think from my engineering point of view, which I would lean more towards, is I think it's still the same boat.
And maybe let's deep dive a bit into the other thought experiment. Let's imagine that you have this teletransporting machine. And how this works is basically it reads all your DNA, the arrangement of your molecules, etc., and then copies them into another machine far away in Mars, right? And of course, you are teleporting yourself, so that basically means that you will stop existing on Earth and start existing on Mars. That will be a one-to-one experiment with the boat experiment. But what happens if this machine fails, right? And for some reason it fails to delete you from Earth, and suddenly there is two Michaels, one in Mars and one on Earth. The memories that you have, those help you to identify yourself. So at the moment that you have two Michaels, maybe in that split second, just before them opening their eyes, they are the same Michael, but very quickly they will start diverging into two different identities. One will continue his life in Mars, the other will continue his life on Earth.
Yeah, very, very nice. For today's identity discussion, we have decided to keep things a little bit simple. And given that tech is typically more looking at something tangible, we will adhere to the corporal definition of identity.
That's correct. Let's don't get too philosophical and let's go back to the pragmatic.
So we now have established that we then want an identity for our uniqueness and that being persistent, then we want it to be something corporal. But then still the question is, who will then issue that identity?
Yes, that's a great question, Michael. That's also one of the reasons why to focus on the physical attributes, because at the end, that is all what we had some time ago when governments start having the need to issue this identity. So at some point, the group was big enough so that the group could not just rely on me knowing you. So the group will need to port your identity somehow, right? And that's called identity issuing. The main identity issuer currently that supports wide acceptance is governments, because those are the wider social groups. Whereas you can think other small groups or communities being able to issue identities like Costco, right? You can have your Costco card saying that you are Michael with your picture. This might not be widely accepted, so you cannot identify yourself at university with your Costco card. So there is somehow an intrinsic monopoly on identity issuing that also speaks about the trust that you attach to an identity. So if you show me your passport, I am more likely to trust that than if you show me your library card. We trust that governments issue identities correctly.
Right. I think what is super interesting to understand is that then with, again, these nation states emerging in maybe the 19th and 20th century, that all of a sudden we start to have this skill where at scale we could start issuing identity through a government. And probably perhaps before this, it was too difficult with all of our communities, which were too fragmented, which were not necessarily speaking to each other at a high level as much. Only then we really started to be able to do that, right? Issuing identities. I think that's a really interesting thing. And somehow all of the other identities that are issued will always some way go back towards that government identity that has been issued. So that government identity still has the monopoly over a lot of things. Even if initially you sign up with just an email address and a password for maybe like a wealth investment account, at some point they will want to know who you truly are. And the only thing you will then show is your passport or any other identity.
So what you're saying is that basically my passport defines who I am, right? That is what we end up in the chain of trust.
Yeah, it's very impactful, right? To understand that. And then why do we even want to be identified in the first place? What is the purpose of all of this then?
To be able to participate in societies, in groups, in services, we need to be identified. There is a pull and push force from the individual and from the group. The group wants the individual to participate, and the individual wants to participate. So you have this very nice dynamic on individuals want to use services. You can think about banks. That is a very basic and universal service. I want to be able to get a bank account. And the group, in this case, the consumer of this identity, that is the bank, wants to be able to verify my identity. So there is to be this identity layer present at any time in our societies. You can think that this identity issuing monopoly very quickly evolves one-to-one to the single sign-on model. So if you think about it, we have a single sign-on for governmental issued identities.
Right. So, but that's already when people want to prove that they are who they are. But like, there's a whole process still around how to get that identity from the government.
Yeah, that is correct. And I think that you got it right. So there is a set of processes going parallel to this whole identity story. We can summarize them in 3 steps: identification, verification, and authentication. The first one, identification, is you claiming an identity. So you claiming that you are Miguelon towards your identity issuer. The second one is verification. So there is the need to establish a link between your claim identity, say for example, you're Michael, and the identity that will be issued, your passport, for example. If you lose your passport, this process is going to happen. You are going to go to government office. You are going to say, I am Michael. I need my passport. I lost it. So there will be a process to verify that you are that you are who you are. And if that finishes correctly, there will be a new link established between the new issued passport and yourself. And finally is the authentication part. You link your passport with your identity and you prove it in front of a consuming entity. And this is how I am proving. With your passport, you are authenticating your identity.
My baby was recently born in Singapore, and governments have always issued their identities as a physical thing. So a passport, birth certificate. And in this case, funnily enough, she actually got issued a digital birth certificate, which is the original version of that certificate. So there is no physical proof of it. And that's where we start seeing that these governments are now issuing more and more digital identities. But they also come with their own problems. The moment that we start using technology, sure, it's great, it's more efficient. But at the same time, we're seeing so many more scams, so many more hacks that will also have its repercussions.
Yes, that's totally right. And let's just don't forget that for years, since there is identity issuance, there has been identity thieves. And the challenge with digital is that the moment that you find a weak spot in the process, everything becomes more scalable. Instead of only forging one document manually or trying to bribe some kind of government official to issue a new passport, you can exponentially risk this whole chain. And it's a chain based on trust. And that is why there are really, really big challenges on digital identity processes.
Great. So we spoke about why identity, what is it even? And we got a good understanding of that now. And that will prepare us to ask some more tougher fundamental questions around the design of identity. So the both of us, we've sat together and figured out 3 key topics. 1, privacy. 2, data ownership. And then 3, who is then actually the problem owner of that identity itself, right? Let's go over them one by one now. The first one is privacy. How important do you think privacy is to designing identity?
That's a very difficult question. I don't think there is a right answer. We are going to run the risk of heavy opinionated answers and personal beliefs. Privacy is a very tricky thing. So it's something that most of the time we don't want to consciously think about. And when we think about it, it's a bit scary. But in this ideal world that I have in my head, and that hopefully we get closer when building it, privacy makes sense in the context of digital rights for individuals, right? And I believe that there is this intrinsic separation in between what happens in the public and what happens in the private space. I had this discussion with friends in different moments, and somehow people value in a different way actions that are done in public and actions that are done in private. I always like to ask, when you go to the toilet, do you close the door? And 99% of my friends says, yes, I close the door independently of what are the privacy views. And the second point is that there is a very strong movement towards this monetization of data. And independently of what you believe, maybe you want to monetize your data and you want to sell it. I think that's totally fine as far as you understand the consequences and the data that you are sharing. At the end, is about knowing. So if you wanna sell your privacy, that's perfectly fine. But you should know that you are selling your privacy. What do you think, Michael?
I just wanted to clarify one distinction that you made there. You speak about public versus private privacy. I think this seems to be much easier to define in the physical world, like the example you gave of a toilet where you close the door or you don't. But I believe these days it's that distinction is much harder to make online or digitally speaking. What is public? What is private? And what popped into my mind the moment you said it is we've seen the FTX collapse happen over the past week or so. Like there have been taken screenshots of his Twitter DMs, for example, or of his Slack where he had certain comments. And whereas that then is somewhat private, right? I mean, it's in a group, a selected group of people. People decide to take a screenshot of it and they share it with a wider audience. So it is so much harder in the digital environment to know where is public, where is private. And you might even then argue that anything that is in the private space might eventually become public.
Yeah. Fully agree. So our second fundamental question is, who owns this data? Who is the one that has the choice over this data? Can I, for example, decide or ask the government to delete my identity? Or can I ask a bank to delete my account?
Yeah. It's actually very funny when you just said it, like, you can go to a bank and then ask them to delete. I think that would be doable. That would be workable. But if you go to your Mexican government right now and ask to delete your passport and your nationality, and you don't really have anything in replacement of it, I highly doubt they will do it. Right. So then that means that in this case, at least the ownership over that data is belonging to the government, even though it might be you, right? It's the same with you maybe being able to change your name. Like if you for tomorrow wanted to be called Fernando, then I think everybody will be able to adopt it as long as you correct them. But you'll only be able to tell that to the government if you, I guess, pay them to change your name, because they then still own that identity of where you were actually called Santiago. That's quite fascinating. And I think the other thing that we are definitely seeing in this regard is the move from Web 2 to Web 3, where Web 3 claims that you own your data, whereas you didn't. I think that should absolutely be the case, that an individual should be able to own their own data. But again, I do not, but maybe that's more of the problem owner statement, but I think we need to facilitate that, right? We need to help them be able to own that data. Like your next door neighbor or whomever, your grandma will not be able to own her data herself. We need to help her own her data.
So if I can summarize that, I think that one of the main points is that the identity is an asset for the individual, right? Data ownership is on the individual side, and we need to enable this individual to exercise those rights over this asset.
What do you think?
I definitely believe that is something that belongs to the individual. I do see the challenge not only on the practical implementation, but also how we organize identity on how to exercise this. Because whereas digital allows us many options on the ownership side, so we can suddenly exercise data ownership in front of banks, in front of big techs, etc. And you can even think about the GDPR helps us a lot in that space, right? So basically, because I live in Europe now, I can ask any company in the world that I want my data to be deleted in any of their servers. That is a very strong right on my data. And what I am not completely sure is that I can do that with the government. So even if we move forward in this fully digitalized society, one of my biggest questions is, can an individual choose to stop existing for that group? Because we already mentioned there is this very strong pull and push between individual and government. One individual to be identified and the other wants to participate in services. The moment that the individual doesn't have this needs to participate in any service provided by this group or society, will the group allow this person to stop existing? I don't know.
It's a good question.
But I think that this discussion really moves us forward to the third fundamental question, that is, who owns this problem? Who is supposed to provide a solution?
If you are part of a group, of a community, of a nation state, I really believe that you as a partaker, even if you are passive in a way, you have ownership and you have an obligation to somehow contribute to this being in existence. So let me clarify a little bit. That sounds very deep. So me being a Dutch citizen, if I want to have that Dutch passport, I want to use it for my government single sign-on, then I should expect that I somehow also need to pay, whether that's through my help or my support in keeping this system alive of that passport, because it's giving me benefits. Of course, it's fine if I outsource or delegate that to a government or a certain ministry within that government that takes care of all of that. But if I, as a member of a community, want to enjoy certain benefits, I do believe that I myself also need to pay, even if I'm not the one leading the pack.
So for you, is the government is solving this as a proxy of the individual having this need?
Exactly.
And I fully agree with you. I think that the government as overarching society organizer is the one that should provide the solution. And at the end, we choose or not to participate in this group.
Awesome. So we now have these 3 fundamental design questions that we have our own personal answers on. It's interesting to see how technology currently has been trying to address these questions. So out of your experience, what is Web 2 currently offering us?
Well, Web 2 offers 2 things. One that falls directly on the product owner, that is governments. I think more and more governments start issuing some kind of digital identity. Some of them centralize it, right? Like Singapore and Netherlands, and others are moving towards that. And the other one that is, I think, more interesting how the solution came to be is the social sign-on, that it is very widely accepted proof of identity, right? So all these big techs, Google, Facebook, Apple, moved step by step into becoming the identity providers for many of the services online. So you don't need to make an account, you just link them. And they somehow realize that it is a very interesting control point for any kind of service in the web. So they are not problem owners, but somehow they offer a solution to this space that was empty on the web.
Yeah, exactly. And where maybe also even the government was kind of failing, or at least not able to offer their own implementation.
Yeah, correct. And not move fast enough at the end. The speed is definitely something that it is of great value in any digital solution.
So we spoke about problem ownership, but the privacy part, the data ownership, that kind of is lacking in Web 2, especially with these social sign-ons. So that's where hopefully now other technologies, iterations of the web, like Web 2.5 or Web 3 can come in. Web 2.5 is something that may be applicable to both Web 2 and Web 3. And there is a concept called decentralized identifier, or a DID, that potentially can help us, especially in terms of privacy. So what is that DID exactly? It's a string anonymized that will still refer to a person. So assume, for example, like your Twitter handle may be @Santiago. Then from that Twitter handle, I can still deduce that it is you, right? It has your name in it. Then imagine that instead of that Twitter handle, it actually is a string of numbers that is unrecognizable to anybody, but it will still send a message to you and your Twitter handle. This may be a way for us to keep our privacy. It's also a very standardized way of introducing an identity across the board that can be compatible with anybody and everywhere.
That's really interesting, Michael. And I think one of the key points here is that this standardization allows us also compatibility, right? And compatibility gives the chance to not only big tech play as identity providers, but anyone in different spaces, including governments. And that means that whatever service or application is underneath doesn't need to do multiple times work of integrating with different identity providers. If you want to be identified by social identifiers like Google, Facebook, Twitter, or your government, or maybe Michael identity provider, the integration effort is only once, right? And from there, from the DIDs, you can plug anything on top. Right? It can be privacy preserving, but it can also be a regular social identity. It's a layer of flexibility that works towards, I think you are going to share in the next section about Web3.
Yes, definitely. That's a good segue indeed for Web3. So that whole decentralization movement is clearly something that we've seen over the years, thus the DID. But another concept which is particularly relevant within Web3 is the decentralized identity. So you being able to own your identity in such a way that it's not coming from a centralized institution. Then what do you need for this? You need clearly the blockchain, because somehow, somewhere we need to store these identities, right? They need to live in some sort of a database, and that is then the blockchain. But you also want to be able to verify these credentials, these identities. That's another very important part of it, so that verification that we also spoke about. And these decentralized identifiers then also come into play to make things easier to communicate with each other while still preserving the privacy. Yeah, and so one really good example of a decentralized identity is a concept called a soulbound token. Funnily enough, in our pilot, we spoke about a non-fungible token that can actually be transferred. It can be sold. It can leave your wallet address. That's in contrast to a soulbound token. It's bound to your soul or your wallet address, can thus not be transferred. This is one of the fundamentals of that decentralized identity. But in order to be able to verify that identity, another technology kicks in where we use a zero knowledge proof. Zero knowledge proof means that maybe if you are the person who wants to verify and I want to be verified, that you do not need to know the particulars. You just can hear from me that whatever I want to prove is true. That's all you need to know. That's the zero proof that you need. Why is this important? Because, again, because of privacy reasons, at times I might not want to be able to reveal, I don't know, my date of birth. Like, is it really truly important for you to know that I am born in the year 1986 when I enter your club and you're a bouncer? Or do you just need to know that I'm above 21 years old of age?
So that basically means that if I go to the supermarket and I want to buy some wine, instead of showing my ID or my passport or my driving license to the cashier, basically I could somehow scan or show my ID, and then the only information that I will reveal to the cashier is if I am above the legal age of drinking or not.
Exactly that. Yeah.
All right. That's actually really interesting. And that is a bit of the power of crypto, right? I'm always amazed of that. I have one question on the Soulbound token. You mentioned that it's linked to your address. What are the benefits that it offers compared to just having your address? Why I cannot just identify myself with my address? What do I need this extra token on top of my wallet for identification?
Well, the wallet address itself is insignificant, right? But there's no information in that. That Soulbound token will contain that information.
You're right. So coming back to our framework of identity, the address is unique, right? But it cannot carry any information besides this uniqueness. And what you're telling me is that the Soulbound token, I could attach other kind of features, right? For example, if I would have something similar to my passport, I could attach my nationality to the Soulbound token, or any kind of other features that I believe are important for my identity.
Yeah. Well, you could put your whole passport in a digital version onto the blockchain and attach it to that wallet address. And then it's depending on the implementation through zero knowledge proofs, what information out of that Soulbound token will be revealed. So if they only need to know you're from Mexico, then only that information will be revealed. If they only want to know your gender, then only that may potentially be revealed. I think that's how you should look at this.
All right. That sounds super exciting. But how far are we, Michael? Because all this Web3 space sounds like we are already here, but it is something that is there at conceptual level, or is something that I can just start using?
Now, this is definitely still conceptual. The zero knowledge proof is in fact something that does already exist. Even though we didn't know we would be that fast, this year we have been able to roll out this technology in production. But the Soulbound token as such, as I explained it just now, is still conceptualized. But it is possible to execute upon it. It's just that it needs some time.
So all these new concepts that are being attached to this name Web3 are one of the things that we are mentioning here is that potentially we have the power to solve all these three problems that we outlined before. By decentralized identity and identifiers, we could solve the privacy concern. The data ownership could be solved, for example, with a zero knowledge layer. You could reveal only what you want to reveal. And because you are owner of your of your identity, you can also decide what it fits you the best. And finally, and that is a bit of the more challenging step, that is towards the problem owner. So how do we enable problem owners to solve this in the digital space? And that's where DIDs, decentralized identities, are a very appealing solution for government to start tapping into, which is privacy preserving and is friendly towards the data ownership perspective. I'm very curious to see where is this going to go to. Potentially in the future, we all have all these problems solved and we say it was a problem of the past.
So in our first section, we spoke about why identity, what is it? Then we realized that we as human beings apparently have this need for temporal uniqueness to prove that we are in fact unique.
And we also spoke about how you can view identity from the corporal perspective or from the spiritual or consciousness point of view.
Exactly. And we decided, at least for this discussion, and also based on what we see in reality, that we'll use the corporal identity for practical reasons as the one that we're using.
As well, because governments use these corporal features to provide identities. We also discussed how governments have a bit of a monopoly on the identity issuance on the digital and the physical form. And basically that governments are the first form of single sign-on to different services. For example, to get a bank account.
And then I think I questioned a little bit about then what are these processes that are a part of identity? We realized that there is an identification process where you want to claim an identity. Then there is a verification process where, in this case, the government will verify that you are you. And then subsequently, you can use that identity to authenticate anywhere.
And we end up this section with how moving towards a digital society and therefore digital identities poses many challenges. And because of the nature of digital solutions, they are more scalable, but also any potential weakness on our protocols or our processes become more scalable.
And because of exactly this, that's why it's so important to start asking the questions as to how should we design identity. And that's what we did in our next section. So we spoke about 3 topics. The one, privacy, data ownership second, and then third, problem ownership. And we gave our own personal opinions about this. And then we used these 3 design questions in our next section as to what our technology can offer.
We very quickly review what is available in Web 2 from the social identity providers and the government IDs, physical but mostly digital. We took a look to what is the transition going to look like in the Web 2.3 with decentralized identifiers.
Yeah. And then in Web 3, we introduced the concept of decentralized identities. And an example of this potentially is the Soulbound Token through zero knowledge proofs, where we can actually execute on this idea of digital identity. Amazing. So let's leave it at this. Thanks so much for listening to an episode of the Santiago y Miguelon Podcast.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.